They thought it would be a dream vacation, the turquoise waters of the Caribbean, a luxury cruise, family time, and celebration. But by one morning, one of them was gone. No goodbye, no struggle, just gone. And what followed wasn't just heartbreak, it was a nightmare. Sightings in foreign countries, rumors of captivity, whispers of trafficking. For over 2 decades, Amy Lynn Bradley's name has haunted online forums, missing persons lists, and the minds of investigators who cannot explain how someone disappears from a cruise ship in the middle of the sea and is never seen again. This is a story of a young woman who vanished without a trace and the family that refused to stop looking. Tonight on the Midnight Mystery Archive, we set sail into the unexplained as we look into the vanishing of Amy Bradley. March 21st, 1998. The Rhapsody of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, had just departed Puerto Rico, headed for Curaçao. It was the Bradleys' first family cruise, a trip meant to celebrate 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley's recent college graduation and her new job. Amy was described as outgoing, athletic, and fiercely independent. She had swum competitively, taught lifeguarding classes, and was excited about what the future held. On the night of March 23rd, the ship hosted a party. Amy and her younger brother Brad danced, drank, and enjoyed themselves well into the early morning hours. A ship photographer even snapped pictures of Amy with the band. Around 1 a.m., Amy and Brad returned to the family cabin. By 5:30 a.m., their father, Ron, briefly woke up and saw Amy on the cabin balcony alive and smoking a cigarette. By 6 a.m., she was gone. No noise, no note, no signs of a fall, her shoes still in the cabin, her cigarettes missing. By 6:30 a.m., Ron and Iva Bradley began searching the ship. They contacted the crew, who allegedly refused to halt disembarkation when the ship docked in Curaçao shortly after. Their reason? She's probably just sleeping it off. But Amy never reappeared. Royal Caribbean began making casual announcements over the ship's PA system. Not security alerts, not official missing persons warnings. Just a vague request for Amy Lynn Bradley to check in with guest relations. The family pushed to review shipboard surveillance footage. They were told it showed Amy walking alone in the corridor around 5:45 a.m., not long after her father Ron had woken briefly and seen her on the balcony. But those tapes were never released publicly. No one outside the cruise line has confirmed what they contained, and the ship staff's story continued to shift. The Bradleys, increasingly suspicious, insisted their daughter hadn't simply wandered off, and she wasn't the type to vanish voluntarily. They knew something was wrong. As the ship docked and continued its voyage, the Bradleys were left alone, grieving, searching, and confronting the growing fear that their daughter hadn't disappeared into the sea. She had actually been taken. From the beginning, the Bradley family didn't trust the investigation. After reporting Amy missing, they expected urgency, lockdowns, search dogs, security alerts. Instead, they got apathy and shrugs. Royal Caribbean, the cruise line that had invited them aboard, did not immediately alert passengers that someone was missing. They allowed over 2,000 guests to disembark in Curaçao, potentially destroying the trail within hours. And as for the crew, they were described as unhelpful, dismissive, and in some cases contradictory. The family's sense of helplessness deepened. They were trapped at sea, and it felt like the people in charge simply didn't want to help. Royal Caribbean eventually conducted a ship-wide search, but it came hours too late, and with no external law enforcement present during the initial critical window. Here's where things get murkier. The cruise line claimed they searched the ship twice, yet passengers later reported no visible search parties, no cabin sweeps, and no questioning. Surveillance footage was never provided to the family, and the company's own internal timeline of Amy's last known movements changed multiple times. Was it confusion or something else, and something more sinister? The Bradleys began their own investigation basically from the start. They contacted the FBI, who met them in Curaçao, but by then the trail had already gone cold. They also began to suspect that Royal Caribbean wasn't telling the full truth. Why? Because of what came after. The cruise line offered the Bradleys free vacation vouchers after Amy vanished. Yes, free cruise credit as a strange sort of apology for your daughter's missing and we didn't help you made no sense. Company officials refused to release the security footage publicly. And there were early rumors, though they were never confirmed, that crew members had shown an unusual interest in Amy during the trip. One even allegedly invited her for drinks ashore the next day, but that crew member denied the claim. Once docked in Curaçao, police joined the investigation, but they lacked resources. The cruise line moved on. The FBI had no jurisdiction at sea, and the family, they were stuck between countries, protocols, and a system completely unprepared for what happened, with no clear way to find answers. Even years later, basic records and timelines from the initial 24-hour window remain incomplete or disputed. To this day, no one from Royal Caribbean has been held accountable for their mishandling of the disappearance. And for the Bradleys, it felt like the company wasn't just unhelpful, it may have been hiding something. But if Amy hadn't fallen, hadn't left voluntarily, and hadn't been helped by the crew, then where did she go? That question wouldn't remain unanswered for long, because the first sighting was already on its way. As weeks turned into months, the Bradleys had to return home. But Amy's story was far from over, because the phone began to ring. Strangers claimed to have seen her in airports, in stores, in brothels. And while most disappearances grow colder with time, Amy's only got stranger. Shortly after the ship docked in Curaçao, a Canadian man claimed he saw a young woman matching Amy's description on a beach with two men. She looked distressed. Every time he tried to approach, the men seemed to block his path. He didn't know she was missing until he returned home and saw her photo in the news. By then, it was too late to help. In 1999, a U.S. Navy petty officer claimed he visited a brothel in Curaçao where a woman approached him in panic. She told him, "My name is Amy Bradley, and I need your help." Before he could act, she was taken away. The man waited years to report it, fearing disciplinary action for visiting a brothel. but the details he provided shocked investigators. He described tattoos on the woman's body that matched Amy's exactly. A Tasmanian devil on her shoulder blade, a sun on her lower back, a lizard on her navel, a Chinese symbol on her ankle. That wasn't the kind of thing someone could guess. In 2005, a member of an organization searching for missing persons received an anonymous email. Attached was a photo of a woman lying on a bed. She was in lingerie, her eyes empty, her body tense. The subject line of the email? Amy Bradley? ? The image was later traced to an adult website, and the woman in the picture was listed under the name of Jazz. Amy's family believed almost immediately that it was her. Forensic analysts gave conflicting opinions, but the resemblance was haunting. There were other sightings too. A woman resembling Amy seen with a group of men in Barbados. A waitress in a Caribbean diner who looked terrified. An anonymous tipster claiming Amy was held as a high-end escort under watch. But none were ever verified. And with each new call, each new hope, the trail would fizzle into smoke. There is no confirmed sighting of Amy Lynn Bradley after March 24, 1998. But there are enough unconfirmed ones to suggest something far darker than a slip overboard or a voluntary disappearance. Something organized, something hidden, something that could happen again. So what did happen to Amy Lynn Bradley? She didn't have her shoes. She didn't take her ID. She had plans for the day. She was afraid of the water, wouldn't go near the ship's railings. And yet, the official theories, the ones still offered by skeptics, investigators, and cruise representatives, fall into only a few categories, and we'll break them down. The first theory, and probably the most obvious, she fell or jumped. Some claim Amy may have accidentally fallen into the sea. Others suggest suicide. But the family and most experts reject this. Amy was a trained lifeguard and a strong swimmer. Her sandals were still in the cabin, suggesting she wasn't headed outside for long. No body was ever recovered, and cruise ships leave a clear wake. She had just accepted a new job and was excited about her future. More importantly, her last known movements, captured by ship's CCTV and witnessed by her father, suggest she was calm, awake, and fully alert. Theory 2, a voluntary disappearance. Could Amy have left the ship willingly? This theory also doesn't hold. Her passport and belongings were all left behind. She was in close contact with her family. She had no history of running away or mental illness. And if she'd left by choice, why would she appear to be distressed in sightings? Each supposed voluntary motive falls apart under even just a bit of scrutiny. Theory 3, the most common theory, is the theory that is most closely embraced by the Bradley family, and probably the most terrifying. It's a case of abduction and human trafficking. Amy had received unwanted attention from crew members, including members of the ship's band. She was reportedly invited ashore the next day by one of them. There were whispers, unverified but persistent, that some crew had ties to locals and ports of call. The theory basically goes like this. Amy may have been lured or taken, either while on the ship or during docking, and transferred to shore under disguise or in disguise. The Caribbean is a known hub for human trafficking, particularly in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when oversight was weaker and documentation far easier to fake. The sightings, especially the one in the Curaçao brothel, suggest she may have been kept alive under duress and used as part of a trafficking ring. But there's a problem with proof. Here's the painful reality. Despite the sightings, the tattoos, the timeline holes, there is no concrete, legally verifiable evidence of what happened to Amy Bradley. No footage, no signed affidavits, no rescue, just years of searching, mountains of leads, and a family that has fought longer than most. The Bradley family has never stopped. They've hired private investigators, collaborated with organizations fighting trafficking, maintained a $250,000 reward for information leading to Amy's safe return, and they have been extremely prominent on television shows and documentaries like Dr. Phil, America's Most Wanted, and Unsolved Mysteries. And candidly, when you watch Ron and Iva on any of these shows, including a new Netflix documentary, the pain, the anguish, the hurt is unmistakable in their eyes, on their faces, and in their voices. This has been an unbelievably difficult thing for them, and it's so apparent. Amy Lynn Bradley vanished from a cruise ship in 1998, and more than 2 decades later, she remains one of the most compelling and chilling missing persons cases in modern history, not simply because she disappeared, but because she may still be out there. This is the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin. Remember, new episodes twice weekly, every Tuesday, every Friday, on the most common and well-known podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I look forward to our next time together.